Good evening to all. This webinar is just a brief introduction to electrical machines. So we will not be talking too much on the math side because then it would be exceeding the time limit. My aim here is just to give you a flavor of the electrical machines and why it is important in our careers, especially as applications engineers, and how we can and ensure that we come out with a proper design, or how we can create a successful career in electrical machines. So for that, I'll be just touching up on the overview of DC machines, and I'll just show you a small GIF file. Of course, this is of an AC machine, but then again, the working is principle. We can modify it slightly and make sure that it functions as a DC machine also, especially when we remove the excitation component and we make sure that we place it within permanent magnets. We can go for a DC machine, or if it is in a similar manner, then we may need to make use of certain rectification modules, which will be converting the AC output into a DC equivalent. So a more accurate depiction of a DC machine can be made out over here. So you can see there is a stationary member, there is a rotary member, and there is a signal that is flowing through a closed path, that is your circuit. So this is basically what a machine is all about. It will have something that is stationary, it will have something that is rotary, and the interaction between the stationary and the rotary components yields something that is going to be called as the signal. So if that signal is taken out as it is, like on a no load condition, you can talk of it in terms of the voltage. And if you connect a load to it, that's going to be completing the path. So as you see in this particular figure, since the path is completed, you will have the signal flowing through the connections, and that's going to be your current. So anything that is taken out on a no load condition, you get your voltage. That is going to be your open circuit characteristics. Your dynamics in such a case would be entirely dependent upon the developed voltage. And the moment when we go for loads, so in practical conditions, we always need to see what would be the differences in the dynamics when you connect a load to it. So in such a scenario, you will be talking in terms of the flowing current. So this is just a small GIF file to show you what it is. So accordingly, I'll be basing my talk on the overview and how it is broadly classified. And again, since we are talking about DC machines, we will be classifying them as DC generators. So how it operates, what are the laws that govern its operation, what are its components, what are the tentative losses, because as you all know, it is very far away from the ideal conditions wherein 100% of the input gets delivered to the output. So there will be, in practical conditions, there will be certain losses. So what are those losses? And again, how do we classify the DC generators, and in the real world, where do we apply them? So that would be the one section of it. And the other section of it would be the DC motors with, again, similar classification with respect to the operating principle, the governing laws, the components, the losses, the types, as well as applications where DC motors are employed. Also now, since it is being, we talk a lot about the special machines, so that is going to be the next level. So for that, we need a lot of software analysis and etc. So for that, a lot of softwares are being developed and being utilized. So we'll just touch up on that. What are those softwares? And I'll just show you a couple of demos, and then we'll talk about the career opportunities. So this is how I will be basing my talk. Moving on to the overview. So I just start off with a brief quote by a famous researcher from the University of California, Berkeley campus. So wherein he says that as per the Indian philosophy, we talk of Shakti as power. And when it comes to a religious interpretation, that's in theology, we say that it is supposed to be the divine power that is responsible for the creation and execution of everything within the world. So in totality, if you consider, he says that it is a complementary pole of the divine tendency towards quiescence and stillness. And that is something which people attribute more towards the female characteristics, very matured and very level-headed. So that is how, from theology perspective, they identify it to be a goddess. And obviously, so to complete the picture, we need to have the other side of it, and that would be the other pole, which is also known as a male consort. So from here, the same interpretation is applied in every characteristics of machines. So the key words to be taken out of this quote is the power, that is Shakti, then the complementary pole, the other pole, and the two poles are usually understood to be interdependent and to have relatively equal status in terms of the divine economy. So you just need to focus on these keywords to understand everything about electrical machines. So you need to have the poles, that is the north and south poles, then they will be interdependent, and yet the interactions between the poles and the circuit that lies in between is going to be dictating the way the machine is going to operate. So the two poles and the dynamics between them is going to be nothing but your magnetic flux density, and the circuit that will be interacting with this magnetic flux density would be your rotor circuits. So that would be forming the part of the moving circuits, and that in turn results in the movement or the rotational movement of the machines, which when coupled to a shaft and connected to a load drives the application. So from that perspective, this particular quote, it is a very powerful quote, and it shows how philosophy can be related to engineering. So the words, the key words are very much in use even in our engineering concepts, and we try to explain it from the math perspective, whereas here I just try to introduce it with a philosophical quote. Since we talk about Shakti and power, we can thus conclude from this that the world is created and run by umpteen forms of energies, and we all know that principle of conservation of energy dictates that energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It can only be transformed from one form to another. So it is this transformation of the energy from one form of another that the entire engineering concepts are based on. And we try to harness these energies and transform them from one form to another to advance the technological abilities of our society, which in turn leads to a better quality of life for the citizens. So in the modern world, electrical energy occupies great significance, and this is a huge leap over the traditional mechanical power and mechanical domains dominance, simply because of its easy adaptability, easy to control, overall efficiency, and better overall efficiency. It's relatively, I mean, it is pollution free and also cost effective when you compare to the mechanical equivalent. So here, the point to be understood is when we talk of electrical energy, or when we talk of electrical inputs, we focus on the voltage and currents. Now, depending upon our applications, it could be board level electronics, or it could be power system or high voltage engineering. So depending upon our application, these the magnitudes of these voltages and currents will vary. So if you're talking of board level electronics or automotive electronics, we talk of currents and voltages at a certain lower level. When it comes to power systems and high voltage engineering and power line designs and energy transmission through the power sector, we talk of voltages and currents at a much higher levels. So this playing of the magnitudes of the voltages and currents is much easier in electrical domain than its equivalent mechanical counterparts. So that is why now people prefer to play with the terms in the electrical domain itself. So this transformation from electrical to mechanical or vice versa is possible through converters, and that is where these electrical machines come into picture. So the electrical machines are these very converters that will be transforming the electrical energy to its mechanical equivalent. If you're talking of employing them as motors, on the other hand, if you're talking of these machines to generate power as a generator, then you will be talking of the vice versa condition, wherein the mechanical input will be utilized to transform and to give out its equivalent electrical output. Of course, keeping in mind that there will be certain unavoidable losses. So this is the bidirectional flow from electrical to mechanical domain via a suitable coupling mechanism. So this, as engineers, we will be focusing on this design of the coupling mechanism to achieve the required transformation of the dynamics from its electrical domain to the mechanical domain or vice versa. So this coupling mechanism is achieved through several kinds of machines in DC, AC, or even special machines. So now classification of the electrical machines. If I have to broadly classify them, as I just told you, depending upon the input levels, we can talk of it either as a DC machine or as a AC machine, which can be further classified when it comes to the DC machines part as a DC generator or a DC motor. Again, if you're talking of the energy transformation from mechanical to electrical domain, you would be talking of it as a DC generator. And if you're talking of the energy transformation from electrical to mechanical domain, then you would be talking of it in terms of a DC motor. So, and when it comes to AC machines, again, the input is no longer DC. So you will be talking of its classification in terms of the speed of operation. So does it match the excitation speed or the frequency? Then in such a case, it would be a synchronous machine. And if not, it would be known as a asynchronous machine. So why we talk of synchronous or asynchronous is because unlike in DC machines, when it comes to AC, the frequency of excitation is important. So in DC machines, we all know that for a DC input, there is no frequency. But for AC machines, the frequency of excitation is important. And especially when it comes to power sector in India, we all know that by design, the frequency of the input is always 50 hertz, whereas you move to west, it's going to be at 60 hertz. So accordingly, the synchronous machine can be further subclassified as a generator or a motor. And an asynchronous machine is nothing but going to be your induction machine. That is nothing but the industrial workhorse. And the synchronous generator, all the AC machines will have to be designed to work for single phase as well as for three phase. So the requirement for the phases depends upon the application. If it is for a heavy industrial application with the greater power requirements and torque delivery, then we need to go for three-phase based designs. So this talk primarily just focuses on providing a brief insight into DC machines. So for those who are interested, we can think of another time to talk more on AC machines and their dynamics. So here in DC machines, we'll be just touching briefly on what they are, how they work, and what are the parts that constitute. So classification of a DC machine, either as a generator or in a motor, it all depends on how you excite it. So for any machine, you will be having a certain coils or certain circuits known as the field circuit and the armature circuit. So it is this field and armature circuit that will be interacting and giving the required output either in terms of a mechanical output or a electrical output. So if you talk of the excitation, the separately excited and the self-excited, if you want to talk about it, we just say that the separately excited machine, it would be having its field winding, which will be having a lot of turns of thin wire, and they will be connected to a separate external DC source. The excitation is going to be provided externally, and it's going to be a DC source, because of which it is known as a DC machine. And the voltage of the input supply, that is of the DC input supply, will have no relation to the developed voltage in the armature. So that is what needs to be understood. And similarly, if you need to talk of the self-excited system, then the field winding would be excited by its own armature. So that is a difference between a self-excited and a separately excited machine. So in a self-excited machine, you do not have an external excitation source. You have its own armature, which will be responsible for the excitation of the field winding. And in such machines, the field poles, so we'll be getting to it, what are the poles and the pole circuits. So the field poles will be having certain residual magnetism, so that when the armature will be rotating, then the residual voltage will be appearing across the collecting circuits known as the brush circuits, and these residual voltages would be establishing a current in the field winding. So that is a little bit of technical explanation of separately excited and the self-excited machine. So the separately excited, again, if you have to further classify, it would be a DC generator as well as a DC motor. And when it comes to the self-excited, you can again classify it as a series machine, a shunt machine, or a compound machine. So here again, it all depends on how the field windings and the armature windings are arranged. So if you talk of series excitation, in such cases, the field windings would be having very few turns of thick wire, and it would be connected in series with the armature windings. So in shunt circuits, it's going to be, or in shunt machine, it would be having large number of thin wires, large number of turns of thin wires, and it would be connected in parallel or shunt. That's the other meaning, with the armature circuit. So in such a case, in series circuit, the current flowing would be the same in both the circuits, whereas in shunt machines, the developed voltage would be the same in both the circuits. And in compound excitation, or in compound DC machine, you would be having both the series excited winding as well as the shunt excited winding. So accordingly, you can either talk of it as a cumulative compound DC machine or a differentially compounded DC machine. So it depends on how the fluxes are being arranged. Are they aiding each other or are they opposing each other? So to get a better understanding of that, we need to go a little bit more deeper into the construction of these machines, which is not the aim of this particular talk. So that is why I have just written that over here as cumulative and differential. And again, that would be subclassified as a long shunt cumulative or a short shunt cumulative, but we will not be getting too much into their details. So the DC generators, that's the first part of the DC machine. So it will be divided into two categories, that is your DC motor and the DC generator. So again, if you talk of a generator as such, it can be classified as a DC generator or an AC generator. And the common operating aim of it is basically to convert the input mechanical power to its electrical equivalent. So whether it is in DC mode or in AC mode, the aim remains the same. So I can just explain that with the help of this particular diagram. So I have, since it is a DC machine, I'll be making use of a permanent magnet. So I have a pole, two poles, the north and south pole, and they will be responsible for setting up of the working flux, which would be originating from the north pole and terminating in the south pole. That is your basic electromagnetics or basic physics. And now when the circuit interacts with this flux, you have, through the Faraday's laws of electromagnetic induction, you have the setting up of the induced EMF. And it is this induced EMF which would be alternating in nature. But again, because of the presence of certain elements in the machine known as the commutator elements, you have the mechanical rectification happening. That is, from the developed AC signals would be rectified into its DC form before sending it to the output. And the output is my simple resistive load. So it could be a potentiometer, or it could be a small lamp load, or it could be just a basic resistance. So you have the commutator that plays the role of the rectification, because of which you have the final output as a DC. So that is how this AC generator can be made to work in a DC mode. But in this particular diagram, there's no as such elements. It is purely an AC output. So for the DC output, you can see that over here, I have the load as a lamp, and that load will continue to glow as long as my coil that remains inside the permanent magnet. So the rotation is in the same direction, and there is no reversal of the signal, unlike in an AC form, because of which my lamp continues to glow. So you can see how the commutator element plays the role of the rectification. So the operating principle, it's very simple. I have the Faraday's laws of electromagnetic induction, as I have just mentioned earlier. So what it says is basically when a conductor moves in a magnetic field, the working flux or the magnetic lines of force, it will be cutting the conductor, because of which an EMF will be induced. And this induced EMF is going to be entirely dependent on certain conditions, like the number of turns and the rate of change of flux linkage. So that is how the equation can be derived mathematically as E equal to minus N d phi by d. So this negative sign is primarily the contribution of Lenz's law, which is responsible for the fact that anyway the cause will always be opposing its parent. So in this case, the induced EMF will always be having an opposite polarity compared to the input voltage. So that is basically the contribution of Lenz's law, but otherwise E is equal to minus N d phi by dt. So this alternating or any rate of change in the magnetic flux, if it is for a single turn, N would be 1, you would get directly the value of E as minus d phi by dt. But for N turns of the coil, when we talk of practical machines, it's not going to be a single turn machine, it's going to be N turns. So when we talk of N turns, it's going to be minus N d phi by dt. So you're going to get a much larger value of E as opposed to that of a single turn machine. So the same concept is indicated with this particular GIF file. So here, the rate of change of flux can be achieved in two ways. Either you make use of an electromagnet, wherein you have an alternating excitation, because of which there is a current that changes sinusoidally, and so the working flux would also be changing sinusoidally. But when it comes to DC machines, I cannot talk of alternating parameters. So the same d phi by dt can be achieved with the help of displacement of the permanent magnet. So that displacement of the permanent magnet is what this particular GIF file shows. So through the displacement of the permanent magnet about its axis, I'm getting variations in the working flux, and that variations in the working flux, when it links with the turns of the coil, contributes to your d phi by dt. And depending upon the number of turns, I get my value of induced EMF. So the basic requirements for a DC generator from this particular expression, it's pretty clear. I need a working field, magnetic field, and I need a moving conductor or circuit in that particular field. So the induced EMF, as I've told you earlier, is always alternating in nature. So it needs a kind of rectification, and that is the job of the commutator. So the Fleming's right-hand rule is your second important law that needs to be understood when it comes to DC machines. So it says that the direction of the induced current in a conductor or circuit will be defined by the Fleming's right-hand rule. So what it says is, hold out the right hand with the first finger, the second finger, and the thumb at right angles to each other. So they are mutually perpendicular. And if the forefinger represents the direction of the line of force, the thumb points in the direction of the motion or the applied force, then the second finger points the direction of the induced current. So that is pictorially depicted over here. So I have my applied force that is going to be depicted by my thumb, which is in the upward direction. I have the working field or the working flux originating from the North Pole and terminating in the South Pole, which is pointed by my first finger. So through the application of the Fleming's right-hand rule, I can safely say that flowing current would be along the direction of the middle finger. So it is going to be very important to understand that from the perspective of electromagnetics. So all these laws are the basic governing principles in engineering electromagnetics, and electrical machines is nothing but application of engineering electromagnetics to practical circuits. So I would say in-depth knowledge of engineering electromagnetics is a compulsory prerequisite before anybody sits to understand and analyze the working of electrical machines. Because what we mathematically prove in electromagnetics, we physically see it where in the applications of electrical machines, and the output is visible to our eyes in the form of their rotation. And when it's coupled to a load, we can see that our design is fruitful in the sense that the load requirements are being met by the designed electrical machine. So that is something which all of us should be very conscious about, and we need to ensure that sufficient math understanding of the governing laws is achieved before we move to understanding the physics of it. So when it comes to working of, so I'll just explain all of this with respect to a single turn conductor where n is 1, because it becomes easier to understand. So I've just taken a single turn conductor, that is ABCD. It's a one turn, and I have defined its axis with the lowercase ab. So they are placed between the north and the south pole. So now if you see over here, I can very well say that when it comes to the flux lines between the two poles of the permanent magnet, it is not getting fully linked with all the flux lines from the north pole are not getting linked with the south pole. So when it moves by 90 degrees, now you can see that the flux lines coming from the north pole can culminate in the south pole. When it further rotates by 90 degrees, you can again see that there is going to be only the direction of the flux is shown, but there is no 100% coupling with the opposite pole. And again, when it rotates by 90 degrees, you can see that there is again a coupling happening. And wherever the coupling happens, there is going to be a flow of current because it is a closed circuit. So the same operation is depicted graphically. So in the first stage, at theta equal to 0, you have 0 value of the induced EMF. As the theta increases, now here when it comes to theta, you need to understand that there are two terms that govern the theta. One is known as the electrical angle, and the second one is known as the mechanical angle. So for a two-pole machine, it is very easy to understand. Our electrical and mechanical angles will be the same. But for higher poles, that is for a four-pole machine, etc., the governance of the electrical and mechanical angles is dictated by the formula P by 2. So accordingly, if it is going to be for a two or for a four-pole machine or for a higher pole machine, you will be having the relation of theta mech and theta electrical to be defined by the number of poles that are there. So if capital P number of poles is 4, then you would be having the relation one of them to be twice the other and or half of the other when you talk of it in a converse manner. So that is something which you need to keep in mind. And accordingly, whenever the induced EMF is high, you can see that if the load is connected, the magnitude of the flowing current also would be high. So this is how a single turn DC generator would function. So I hope with this picture, the working is pretty clear to all of you. So coming to the parts of a DC generator, so all of us know now how it works, what is the physics behind it. Now we need to know what are the terms that define its construction. So when it comes to its construction, you need to see what all terms are there. So its basic mechanical frame on which all the other components are built into is known as the yoke. So the yoke is your basic frame or the outer structure of the electrical generator. So the DC generator, which is shown over here. So when it comes to the inner circuits, so now you have the stator circuit, and again you will have something known as the rotor circuit. So now what is a stator circuit? So the stator circuit is the stationary circuit, and that is the primarily it generates the working magnetic field. So if you see here, you can talk of two magnets with opposite polarity facing each other. So if you're talking of a two-pole machine, you will have just a single magnet with the north and south pole. And if you have a four-pole machine, you'll have two magnets with each with north and south poles. So, and accordingly, as the number of poles needs to be increased, you will be introducing more and more magnets.